Hello, everybody. Welcome to Detroit. Well, not in person, but bringing the entrepreneurial spirit of Detroit to you in the comfort of your home or office. I must say, I really love this event, the format. And I have been enjoying seeing many sessions so far, learning more about initiatives and companies here in the tenacious city of Detroit that we care so deeply about. With the welcoming community like no other, I hope you were able to enjoy a variety of sessions so far and that you take great advantage of the inspiration and buzz around this event. I want to take a moment to thank Monica, Nina, and everyone who worked tirelessly to make this week happen, to bring us together with the power and energy that totally matches actually the spirit of Detroit itself. We are all going through a difficult time, and they found a way for us to be able to dialogue while social distancing. This is awesome. So, happy Wednesday of Startup Week Detroit 2020. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you all being here. You all make this celebration happen, and I am, for one, am honored to share my expertise and in return get inspired by you. Talent is so important. Talent is critical for every startup to hit milestones, grow, fast or slow, no matter. Scale. You need to rely on your teammates and you need to click. You need to share the passion and deep love for your venture in order to make your dream a reality and advance in the right direction. So how can you find the right people? How can you support your mission by hiring someone? How can you add and onboard the right people that help you grow and scale your baby, your business that you work so hard for? Hiring is time consuming, let me tell you this. Do you have and take the time to make sure your hire is a win for your company's future? How can you avoid wasting your limited time and resources when you need to fill a role? How can you make sure you invest that budget wisely, that budget you finally have to fill a critical role that is actually supposed to make your life easier and supposed to help you to be able to focus on what your role is? You want to shoulder the workload. That is why you are hiring. In every startup, everyone wears many hats. But as you grow, roles need to be more defined and people need to be hired for certain areas of your operations. You grow, that means so does your company structure. How can you make sure you protect your culture that worked so well to bring your startup off the ground and to the point where you need to hire, which is awesome. You are at a point in your entrepreneurial journey where you're well-funded and revenue positive, perhaps. Well, those are our typical clients. But if you are in a different stage, hiring knowledge is equally important to have. Either to prepare you for what is coming if you are just starting out, or to see what could be improved if you are already scaling and have first hiring experience. Today, my goal is to support you. I would like this session to be as interactive as possible and want to make sure to bring you into the conversation. Therefore, I would like to offer you participation anytime during this presentation. Please feel free to use the chat window to post questions to help you navigate your own personal situation. Or simply let me know through a comment why you chose this session. That way I can hone in on any topics you would like me to touch. But of course, we will have some time at the end too to answer some questions if you prefer that, whatever works best for you. So to get started, I would like to share a little bit of my own personal story with you. And then I'm so excited to share some of the wisdom from my work, which is helping startups make hiring decisions. And so I can share situations and lessons learned from my collaboration during the hiring process with startups and job seekers who want to join a startup team. Although, to be honest, I never in a million years would have thought I would be a recruiter one day, or in fact today. That was never on my agenda. But here I am, a startup recruiter, and you guessed it, I love it. I'm sure you have your fair share of surprise career development. Chances are you are where you would have never imagined to be today, or perhaps you're exactly where you always aim to be. My name is Nicole. I have a huge passion for collaboration with startups and entrepreneurial minds. It is just so energizing to me working in an environment where people want to work hard to change our world. People are mission-driven and find a way to realize their idea, make it work, show up, create change. To me, this is so positive and ultimately contagious. No matter the roadblocks along the way that we all know exist and are not going anywhere. Roadblocks. That's the other thing I love about entrepreneurs. They typically possess a lot of, or at least need, grit. So coming back to my story, after my MBA with a finance and strategy major, I joined one of the big three as a consultant. In my case, Ernst & Young. As a young professional, I enjoyed a lot those huge, fascinating projects that would teach me so much and allow me to work with like-minded teammates and professionals. Big challenges to tackle, lots to learn. From all the companies I helped in various ways during those years and beyond, from strategy consulting, hammering out reorganizations, helping companies in their turnaround, or create needed succession plans, finding and entering new markets. Out of all these projects, I fell in love with those companies that were young, fragile, and extraordinarily exciting, hungry, looking for support to create something new to advance our world. I saw them chasing a novel idea or innovation. They saw a need. And so I started focusing on startups. So pretty much during the past 20 years, I was privileged to help and inspire many founders to start something that they thought was not possible, to keep going when it got rough, to succeed and grow ultimately. That is right in my wheelhouse. But in between, my journey took me for 2 years to South America, where I was fortunate to quickly learn the gist of the language and dive into the fresh starting ecosystem there, into the university system as well. And while I learned so much, I was also able to inspire young people and founders along the way. As with everything, support is a two-way street. Give as much as you take. You can imagine that was a very unique and interesting opportunity which shaped me like everything in our lives shapes us, makes us who we are. Coming back to Michigan after this experience, and in order to also be a great mother to my then high school-bound children, I decided 4 years ago to join the company an ecosystem friend of mine was starting. What an opportunity to work with her, and on top of it, get some flexibility that I needed for my family. Life throws you amazing curveballs, and all the time we make little decisions with impacts on our lives and can win so much from trying different routes. See, Amy's background is in HR, which mine never was. But that is how I got to transfer my understanding of startup operations and challenges from years of working with so many into helping Michigan companies to find the talent they need. Amy's amazing. And here we are today with the comeback of Detroit, the ecosystem in Michigan accelerating like no other. Detroit continues to amaze and inspire me. There's a lot if you begin to unpack it, which we are in an event like this. So let's dive into the hiring challenges for the entrepreneurial journey. Is there a playbook? One might wonder, is there a playbook for recruiting in the startup world? I work with a huge variety of founders and startup managers. And on the other side, with thousands of job seekers wanting to join startups. I would say, yes, there is what I would call a general framework for the hiring process, most definitely. However, as anything with startups, and we all know that, even the hiring process is unique in every case. There's no blueprint that fits all. To begin, I would like to outline general steps that we recommend for the hiring process. This is a very general outline. Details can vary and there's wiggle room. Hiring seems to be a normative. So some of you might be very familiar with it, but I want to make sure we are all on the same page. So let me go through each step and explain why every phase in the hiring process is important. This can also help you if you are a job seeker wanting to work for a startup, to see the process and why it is that way. But I can get to that later. You can, please let me know through the chat window if there is job seekers or the job seeker side is of interest in this forum. I would be happy to talk about it or support you in your individual situation. So the general hiring process has I would say 5 big phases. And within those, more optional steps, but 5 general phases that should be followed when hiring someone or bringing someone on board. Let me tell you the 5 phases first and what they entail, and then go through them in more detail with potential traps and mistakes that we see startups experiencing. You would be surprised. If you only look at a couple resumes and then interview and hire someone, how the situation does not work out sometimes. We have to step back and take off the too busy lens to make sure that the new hire is actually a great fit for the mission, for your mission, and actually can be a blessing for your company going forward, can help you achieve your goals. So, number 1, and that is right at the beginning or before you even start the hiring process or looking. Number 1 is the needs assessment. And that's a very important step. I will tell you more about it in a bit. I just want to go through the steps first. The second step or phase would be vetting candidates or applicants that you get. And then from there, build a valuable candidate pool where you can then go to the next step or where you can decide on who you want to move forward and get to the next step, which would be interviews. That's in my 5 steps, the third one. The 4th and 5th is comes more towards the end, but it's important nevertheless. It's background and reference checks, and then number 5 would be making an offer. And not often, this is not the last step, because if you have a candidate that doesn't accept your offer, then you have to go back either to square one or to one of the previous steps. So that's why I call it a step, because sometimes it's not the end of the job search or the hiring process. So let's go through all the steps, and I tell you a little bit more what they entail and why they are important and what is important to remember when you go through each phase. So the needs assessment is important for me as a recruiter, but it's also important for you as the hiring founder, the startup, because if you think, oh, I need a marketing person, let's just do a marketing posting or look for a marketing person, it might in the end not work out well. You really need to think thoroughly about what is it you need. You cannot have a generic marketing posting or look for a generic marketing person. That's just an example that applies to all roles. In the example of marketing, for instance, expertise varies. From some people need someone who does sales and marketing, or people who do the marketing strategy. There could be a need just for digital marketing, or you need someone actually who is more on the side of graphic design, or you need someone to work with your marketing agency. So there's a huge variety of expertise just in marketing, for instance. That's just one example. It applies to every division of your operations. You really need to know, you need to think about you need to define the role. Think about what is it, where do you need help? What does that role entail? What can we offer? What would the job description of that person, the perfect person that can help you take things off your shoulder, what would that actually be doing all day? What would actually the responsibilities be? What level of role would that be? what level could that develop to? Because those are all things you need to think about before you have people apply or have people come in for interviews. You need to know, you need to give people maybe a perspective of 2 to 3 years. You need to know, is it the director level, a VP level, or is it just an associate level you need? Because if people apply and you go through all the phases with people that are too high level for what you in the end offer, you might have in the end people who don't want to accept your offer because they have been a higher level before and they don't see how that could be a fit. They might not like the compensation, or if you hire someone for a higher level position and you want to give them a chance and they have been on a lower level, you might find that they actually are overwhelmed by the position. So it's really important you ask yourself, what level is that role? What are the tasks? What are the responsibilities? What is the development that person can go through? You have to think of that before you start the search. I mean, in a perfect world, not everybody takes the time, and that's where things can go wrong right from the very beginning. And there can be misunderstandings along the process. And in the end, you might not end up with a good hire or with non-hire at all if you focus on the wrong level, on the wrong specialization of, a person's experience, skill level. So yeah, this is very, very important. And for me as a recruiter, it's important to understand, what is it that you're looking for? What is the profile like? What do you really need? What this person that you need, what should it have done before? How many years? And how can that person help you? So that is the very first step that sometimes goes wrong. Then the second phase, vetting applicants, is very time intense. I would say that probably can take a couple weeks, and depending on the job, you can get a huge turnout of applicants, which to sort through, to vet, to look at the data you get in the resumes, to follow up with candidates, can be very time consuming. If you have not a recruiter in your startup yet because you're smaller, then it's nice to have some help, because that can eat a lot of your time, especially if you have a couple positions you are trying to fill. So I would say the second vetting phase is, your goal in that phase is really to build you a good candidate pool. That pool should be then maybe 6 to 8 candidates that you say in the end, those are the 6 to 8 I want to move forward and I want to start interviewing. And I want to look at those. I want to see them. I want to talk to them. Those are people. It can be less, but this is the max. I would say 6 to 8. But what you shouldn't do is just see one candidate, one resume that you really love, and then think, you're done. I don't need to spend all the time. I just make an offer, because you just never know. And if that person doesn't work out, if the compensation doesn't work out, or any background checks come back with a red flag, then you can start from scratch. So that's why we kind of recommend to go through the whole process and take your time to go through. I mean, sometimes you do get a reference from within your network for a great position, and you get lucky and it works out perfect. I mean, it does happen. Or maybe you have your own personal formula, how you find these people in your network, and it can work out. But if you hire quickly just because you don't want to spend much time on it, it can backfire. So you need to look at things, and you need to make sure, because it's a big decision to bring someone on, to spend a budget on a role, especially if you are early stage. You want to make sure that person has what it takes to help you grow your company, to grow with the company, to have the right mindset, the personality. And so in that second phase, where we vet candidates, so we do look at all the documents that people send, and we look at the experience. We look at, is this a skill fit from what we assessed as something important for you. We also try to see if the personality fits. So we like to sometimes get back at the candidates, ask them extra questions. And because the culture in a startup is so important, somehow you have a huge variety of personalities. You know, some people A-type or want to teach desperately other people or know everything, or other people are more open, flexible. I mean, it's just this huge variety of personalities, and you need to find someone that where your culture is protected. It's very important for a startup. So we look at all these things, and it is work intense. And I can only recommend, if you hire or you want to hire, take your time. I know it's hard. We are all very busy, but it's worth it in the end. Because if you go through the whole process and you wanted to take a shortcut to save some time, you might end up having to start all over again, and you can be stuck for months spending time on a regular basis and still not have someone that fits. So if you spend time during those weeks that you really want to do the search, it actually pays off to be invested, engaged, to really cut out time, maybe every week, to really look at things, look at people, schedule interviews, really move the process forward in a timely manner. Helps definitely in a variety of ways. So once you have kind of like decided through vetting applicants, you have your 6 to 8 candidates that you want to move forward to interviews. Then typically you start with phone interviews, and you invite them to phone interviews, probably 30 minutes. It's not that much time, depends on how many candidates you have. And from then on, you can see who you want to invite on site or have personal interviews. I mean, I don't know, right now with maybe Zoom interviews or videos, whatever you want to choose, so that your whole team can get to know, ask questions, see the candidates, depending on how big your team is. Yeah, that's important. So you do phone interviews, you do Zoom interviews, on-site interviews, maybe with a part of the team, and then the second one with another part of the team, maybe with 2 to 3 candidates, the on-site phase then. Can be more if you want. And then if the team or the majority of the deciders in the team have seen candidates, then you can make a decision who you want to have background or reference checked. And background checks are criminal checks, for instance, and reference checks would be you or someone you hire to do those checks, talks to colleagues, former bosses, former peers, whoever they actually name you, and you probably are familiar with that process. So you just want to make sure there's no red flags. You can see a little bit how it is to work with that person. You get a little bit more information about these people you are considering hiring, and it makes up this whole profile of each candidate in the end. From vetting their documents, seeing them in interviews, and then getting the checks also on them. It makes the whole profile and gives you a really good sense of who you hire. And you probably can then best make a decision. And then in the end, the phase number 5 is make an offer, which, you negotiate the salary, the compensation, you negotiate developmental aspects of that role for, the years. You negotiate the job description and title, things like that. And so it is still not settled at that point if your dream candidate will actually take the offer and, join your team. It's not uncommon that even in those last phases where you do reference or background checks, you find something that you don't like, or even if you like everything, you make an offer and then the candidate doesn't like the job description or title or the compensation, or changes their mind, or maybe has a couple other processes going and prefers another offer. So you should have 2 to 3 candidates at least that you pull through the whole process, just in case you end up losing candidates because they just accepted another offer, or they just in the end are not sure if that is what they really want to do as the next step. So here are a few other takeaways that, things that we see often. You should be realistic about your job offers. If you should be realistic about who you offer what, and if that is an interesting next step for them. Even if you get people through your network, really have an honest conversation with them about what their, in their perfect world, their next step is. Is that really what they want to do? Because sometimes job seekers apply to so many opportunities, and sometimes people really want a job, and so it can easily happen that someone accepts your job, but then perhaps if they are not really behind it, they might still apply to other opportunities and accept another offer soon. So you should be really honest and realistic, and just make sure it's a good fit and that this is an interesting role, an interesting career step, an interesting opportunity and responsibility for the candidate, and it should be a good fit for you. So let me give you some of the common quirks of startup hiring, and I'm sure you will recognize some of the situations as they might apply to yours too. So, and please, keep questions coming, or let me know if you, want to know more about certain aspects, or get more examples, whatever it is that helps you the most. I just want to make sure I cover that. So one thing with startups is that, or that I often see, is that founders don't always have hiring experience. It's a common phenomenon, actually, that startup founders are often not experienced in the hiring process. And in combination with the time strain that every founder faces, startups can make mistakes when selecting candidates for interviews, or when hiring rushed, cutting corners, and not taking time to go through all the process steps. Often mistakes happen because founders are really good at what they're doing. They're brilliant in their field. But hiring is either not their forte, there might be a lack of experience, hiring, as they might have never been in that situation, or it's simply not enjoyed. So I've seen all of the above, and I totally understand, it is understandable, and perhaps some of you can relate to that observation. Of course, I'm talking about startups that are like our clients, probably well-funded and revenue positive. Those are our clients, and they are busy. It's just a lot of work, and you just don't know when is the best moment to hire. Sometimes you wait, and your workload is just so much at the moment that you desperately need someone that you can't cut out any time, but you really need someone. So it is often hard to find that perfect moment where you actually would have where you would have a little bit more time to engage in the process and, selection process, a little bit more time to see people, to talk to people. But yeah, you're not sure if, you progress like it looks like, so you better wait because you don't want to have another employee to pay in case, projects go down. So yeah, often that's another phenomenon that at the moment when you really need someone, that's the moment that you have the least time to engage in a hiring process. So, but you need to hire. So this is a great situation, right? This is actually wonderful. You made it so far, and you moved such big roadblocks already. At that moment, you have established your company or your markets, your customers, you earn money, you're all set, you're set up for growth, and or you are even earlier and you need people. So, but this is the most exciting phase for any startup, and that is when, we come in, or I come in my day job, and I can only tell you that the most successful hires actually happen when, people take their time, and you can just, if you don't have time every day or during the day, I can only recommend take, a designated time out of your week or on the weekend if it must be, and really make sure that every week you look at candidates, you make decisions on who you want to pass on, who you like to pursue further. Move the process forward always. This is probably the most successful way, because if you drag on with your hiring process forever, you lose those candidates that came in initially because they probably have accepted other offers, they're not interested anymore, haven't heard from you in a long time, or it's so people apply, and that is your best chance. Look at them right away. If you don't like their background, if you don't like their skills, if you think they are not a good fit, then decide right away. If you think they might be a good fit, it's probably good to move them forward soon, just to make sure you don't lose them, just to make sure you remember what you liked about them. If you drag on for a month, it's gonna be a challenge. So I know founders are brilliant scientists or tech founders and desperately need to shoulder the workload. But of course, it's a fast-paced environment, and so I can only recommend to really take your time hiring. It's almost like you give part of your startup that you worked so hard for to someone that you don't really know if that's a good fit, to trust that person, to know if that person really runs with it well, if that person has the same mindset as you. Maybe a person, if it's a salesperson, that person will be the face for your customers. Finally you have customers, and you trust someone with your customers and with your future success. And so you just want to make sure that this person is really representing you well, knows what your company, your mission is about, helps you with what you want to accomplish. It's just so important. So a good guideline that we recommend for the overall hiring process, all those phases that I just explained to you is probably 8 weeks. If you go beyond those 8 weeks, chances are you already losing early candidates because they have been maybe gotten offers elsewhere. So just so you to keep this in mind, it's probably a good guideline. That is also a good amount of time to move the hiring process forward with quality. And that also limits the time that you have to spend on the hiring process, if you think about it. So if you cut out, let's say, 2 hours every week to look at everything, to make sure you make decisions on who to move forward, to make sure you interview people on the phone or have time to bring in people, I don't know, 2 to 3 hours a week, probably. If you do that, you could be done after 8 weeks, and it could be really a very efficient, smooth process, and you really could find a quality candidate. But if you don't have the time, I mean, you can, of course, drag it on, and eventually you will find someone, hopefully. But just keep that in mind, that in the end, you spend way more time if you don't move the process forward. So, yeah, I mean, the time strain is a common problem, and it's probably the reason you should always move 2 to 3 candidates, because, you procrastinate things, and then you lose candidates along the way. So, I mean, and you shouldn't feel bad if you don't have time a week or 2 and you procrastinate the process. I mean, it is what it is. You have to do what you have to do, but just keep it in mind. It's just supposed to help you to keep that in mind and to know about that. So, yeah, in case you lose a candidate or 2, so if you, let's say you love one candidate and it's like your perfect person, and you really want that person, and you think, wow, this could be like the salesperson with that experience, etc. And then, you go through all the processes, and in the end, that person just accepted another offer. It's a very common situation. You would be surprised. So, and also the other thing is, sometimes if the lucky candidate realizes to be the lucky winner and the sole lucky winner, sometimes you experience that they increase the price. Even if you ask them before about their compensation expectation, if they realize they are the only candidate left, sometimes they do come up with higher numbers. And that's when you have a conflict. And we had that a couple times, that, you have your perfect candidate, you really want that person would actually take the job, but now they come up with a higher number. So, and you have a budget as a startup. Most of the times you have a budget for every position. You don't have that much wiggle room. Maybe you have, but this is another thing that you should keep in mind. Could be coming in. It's not uncommon. It's not probably a bad thing. It's just, it happens. So, the other thing that I want to say is that after the founding rounds, and if you hit the market successfully, I would say the hiring is a big challenge, and you should not underestimate it. If you ever hire a wrong person and you need to change that, don't, it happens. So if you have to go through this, don't be discouraged. That's just one roadblock that you sometimes hit. And but it has to fit your culture, and you have to make sure that that you then decide. I think Ralph Lauren, I don't know if you saw the movie Ralph Lauren, when he says after going public, they hired CEO, or he hired a CEO, and I think after half a year he had to let him go and find someone else. And then that second one also, I think he had to let go after half a year. So just, if it doesn't work, it's your baby. You have to make decisions like this, you know, just because it can ruin the culture. It can do so many things to your startup. You have to be really protective in that moment, you know. So yeah, I don't know. Do we have some questions, or I just want to know if people want to be talking about the job seeker side of things. I could talk about that a little bit, but
I definitely have been in the chat. Guys have not been putting questions in here. But and I did ask them, I did pose a question in there. I wrote it in there to see if we had any job seekers of startups and if learning resources of the process would interest them. I did put that there as well. And I just, because they literally still, participants, please still put any questions you may have in the comments, but I do have a burning question. So please don't mind me. So I just love that you brought up that the challenges of the hiring process, like you could go through all of these phases and still experience changes. What would be your best advice for a startup that, like you said, usually when you're in that position, you don't have a lot of wiggle room financially speaking? What would be your best advice as far as finding talent that fits within your budget, like affordable talent, or maybe even interns?
Right. That's a very good question, actually. Interns. Yeah, I think there's a couple initiatives in Michigan, and Amy is involved in that too. But in general, you know, I think as a startup founder, you're probably very creative. You know, you have to be creative in making it work, finding your way, your journey. And the same probably applies to finding people that, you know, go with you on your journey. So if you don't have enough budget to, let's say, hire, you know, like a service to help you find someone, or to really pay benefits or pay a salary that would be market for that position, and you still want to need a partner, or you want to find someone that helps you, I think you have to be really creative. And obviously we don't work so much on that, but you know, I would say there is probably a lot of people out there, especially for interns. I mean, just look at young people, you know, give them a chance to experience what it's really like to be an entrepreneur. What an opportunity. So I would say just, you know, circulate probably at best in your network on social media, the opportunity, and hopefully people share further. And then I'm sure, I mean, probably what you often have is that people think, oh, she probably wouldn't want me, you know, in that case. So, yeah, you just have to be looking and be creative. And I'm sure there's a lot of kids these days, students, who are looking for opportunities to join startups and get that experience, because wearing many hats teaches you so much more than just, you know, doing just something small. Typically, young people don't get the opportunity to experience a lot. Typically, they get jobs that are very defined, and they do the same over and over during the day, which is good for them too. But to have the opportunity to really look someone over the shoulder and see what it's really like to, you know, to stem a startup or to make progress to get where you want to be. This is so inspiring, and probably would help a lot of young people in many ways. So I think I would just share it about, that's just,
I love that you made that difference too as well, because we have a comment here from Marilena. She had put a question in right did right as we started the Q&A. She says, how often should you be looking for candidates if you already have employees? But unfortunately, I hadn't seen it. We had started discussing the question that I had asked. And during that answer, when we were answering, she responded again, affordable talent can seek out agencies like Michigan Works who have talent scouts. The agency pays the talent scout and not the employer. And I like that you made the difference, because when I read that, I was like, well, what would, if I was put myself in affordable talent shoes, where would I go? And I think that's the difference, is if I was looking for a defined role, I think I would go to Michigan Works, similar, like, okay, I want to know exactly what I'm doing 9 to 5 every day. If I wanted to figure out or learn something new, or just be able to explore possibilities that maybe don't even have job descriptions yet at Michigan Works, then yeah, I guess the startup direction would definitely be the different. I saw that myself. So like I said, I was over here just fascinated, just because I am an entrepreneur myself, but I've never had to go through the hiring process for myself. I've been a hiring manager for other companies many times. I also do a lot of casting. I've never hired for my own business. And then you're right, it's your own baby. It's very personal to you. And so just to even consider that was very enlightening for me. So thank you.
Yeah, and in general, if there's job seekers, startups, as you know, are looking for people who are probably, ideally, of course, have experience with scaling a business, but, you don't always get that. So you have to be creative too sometimes to, you always have to, there's always a compromise, because there's never really someone out there who has exactly done what you need in that particular role. Mm-hmm. So there's probably people out there who have some background in things. It depends, of course, on the role. Software developer is probably different, but, often, even if it's a marketing position or sales or anything, a startup uses a certain system for the operations, and, that person might not have work with that system, or in finance, there's so many systems out there. So sometimes people want someone who has experience in that system, but you can't find that necessary. So there's always a little bit of a compromise. You have to be aware that you might not find the unicorn, but you have to see, look at the battles, or you have to choose the battles in that case. So.
And then maybe, then we might be talking about a different session that is available later on in Detroit. It's Startup Week, when we can talk about maybe training those new employees after they are employed, Yeah. So honestly, thank you so much, Nicole, for being here. We are out of time. I hate to even have to even consider that, because like I said, you expanded my mind on some things that I didn't even know I needed to think about. So thank you. And thank you to all the participants who were here throughout. We greatly appreciate you as well, and for your questions, participation. We do hope that you were able to take your notes. And if not, please feel free to keep in touch. Where can we find you, Nicole?
So, I work for AmyCellTalent. So, of course, these are all observations, and are meant for everyone here to keep in mind when you are hiring. So you might, find a great candidate through your network, like I said, or don't even need to go through the whole process, or you are lucky, But these are all things, hopefully that can help you navigate this challenge. And depending on where you are in your journey, you should just know about this and then keep it in mind. In the wake of the ever-changing 2020, I'm just very grateful, I just want to say, to be able to have a conversation with you all today. I think it's important to support each other and share valuable experience. We all need to lift each other up, and that way help Detroit keep progressing and supporting Detroiters and the wonderful ecosystem we have in Michigan. Please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, stay in touch, share your story with me, and let me know if you have questions. I would like to get your feedback or have more conversations. And hopefully everyone is taking something away from this dialogue today. And yeah, stay healthy and safe. Thanks again.